to your drama. Chase success with Global.Media.com. Then celebrate it with or without champagne or rum.
And we're live. And why are we seeing colors? Okay.
I was looking for a
And I was
pen.
just seeing your face. Oh,
I was looking for a pen, but I'll wait for my husband to appear
okay.
miraculously
Welcome,
with one.
everyone. We are live. I hope we are live on LinkedIn and we get no tech issues today. Fingers and toes crossed. The last two shows we had issues. Let's be kind to the gods today. So, welcome everyone to another show where we talk about some aspect of perimenopause and menopause. Of course, I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Annie and Paulette, and today we have our lovely guest speaker with the flower in her hair looking all beautiful, Stacy. So let me pass the mic to you all to do a very short introduction before we get started. Stacy, let us know who you are and where we can find you.
Hey everyone, I'm Stacy Casson. I'm the Chief Play Officer at Things to Think About. I help parents have peaceful evenings and avoid dramatic mornings. You can find me on these mean LinkedIn streets. That's where I basically hang out, and I'm really thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I'm Paulette Hallam. I think most of you know me, and I'm an author, a therapist, and very technical. I'm your girl. Any problems, call me. Over to you, Annie.
So just the main streets of LinkedIn. The LinkedIn streets are nice. That's my look. And I said, Liana, I see you. Welcome, of course. If you're here, say hello. What I don't know, Lisa, is why the show's not going on onto my YouTube. No idea. No, it says it's streaming. Okay, fine. All right. So of course, no. Those who don't know me, those who do know me, I'm all about doing books. If you have a book idea, if you've got a book, a manuscript that's not published, yeah, let's talk. I want to help you finish your book, publish your book, sell your book. It's pretty much me. Otherwise, for today, I'm here for my friends to laugh at. Really, but I'll try and keep quiet. Yeah. Lisa, you're here. Lisa,
Well, today's
that.
about joy, so we're gonna be laughing hopefully
Right.
by the end of today, the end of the show. So for those of you who are new, welcome. Please share with us where you're joining us from, because if you don't see anything, we don't see you. So please engage with us in the chat. My name is Lisa Favek. I'm a dietitian, author, and coach for women in perimenopause and menopause. We have these shows every other Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern because we don't talk about this topic enough. There is so much that we don't know yet, so much research that still needs to be done. But different parts of the world, the topic is still very taboo, still very hush hush. And the point about these shows is to bring that awareness and education to women who need it, and to create a safe space for men and women to have that conversation. And we always welcome the men in the room. Sometimes I'm so surprised there are more men than women in the room, but I'm always happy that they feel safe enough to be here. So welcome everyone. So today we're talking about creating a life of joy. And that idea of joy kept coming up in different forums for me over the past, let's say, 3 weeks. The last couple of shows, we talked about being a caregiver in menopause and the stresses that come with that, whether we're taking care of children or aging parents or pets or all three. The last show, we talked about burnout and how that affects us during midlife. But I really wanted this month, I know it's Men's Health Month, but I wanted to focus more on how do we create that joy, and to let women know that if they're not finding life to be particularly joyful right now, it's not your fault. Please don't blame yourself. There are things you can do, but it's not just because it's stress. I know a lot. I'm talking to a lot of women, and doctors are telling them, it's just stress or it's depression. Here, these antidepressant pills. Take these pills, and we're not really getting to the root cause of what's causing these things. And I know Stacy talks a lot about play, and she's the creative. What is it, chief play officer? I thought that was such a very cool name. So before I get into the science as to why these things happen, Stacey, just give us a 2 minutes intro as to why you call yourself the chief play officer, how you came up with that, what made you, because I've seen you do some audio events when we had audio events, and you always talked about play and different games we could engage with at work. So what got you into that, and why is it so important?
Play is so important because it's essential for our well-being. It There is science behind play, but for me, it's always been problem solving. When you are playing a video game, for example, you are trying to find a solution to an issue, and play lowers the stakes. So if you're I don't know if anybody's read the book Ender's Game. Not the greatest use of play because that's helping, make child warriors, but when it was a game, these kids could figure out what was happening and they could navigate and were very effective. When they were trying to solve for HIV, this how the protein folded, and they put it out to a bunch of gamers. This is stuff that scientists have been working on for years. Gamers solved it in a few days because it's play. We're lowering the stakes, we're more able to tap into our intuition, and it feels good. It feels good to do something when there's play, because think about where you get your best ideas. It's very rarely at the office. I mean, if anyone's in the chat has gotten their best ideas at the chat in the office, like, I'd love to know. But usually it's in the shower. It's when you're going on a walk. It's when you're having a conversation with a friend, a cup of coffee, and like, oh, there's the idea. So I've always been a fan of play. I got introduced to a couple people in the play realm. Gwen Gordon was a big play advocate. I never remember her name, Jane McGonigal. She did the Super Better app. And when they were talking about play, it just clicked something in me because I've always been a playful person. And people think that play is just games, but play to me is problem solving. It's being curious, it's being open about things, because when you engage in that way, you will find solutions in a different manner. So play just lowers the stakes so that our brain can stop freaking out and can calm down and go, okay, what's a different way that we could look at this? What are we not seeing? So that's why I'm the chief play officer. It just sounded cool to me. I like play, and if I'm going to be my own boss, I can make my own title. So that was aligned with who I am.
That's so great. Love it. And I really love that title. Just want to pass the mic quickly to Paulette, because Stacey did mention a mental health aspect to it. And I know you came from a corporate world. So was play or taking these types of breaks something that happened at all when you were there, or do you think it would have helped, especially when the room was full of women in midlife, all having the same sort of issues?
Well, the one thing I would say is that, and I know this isn't a conversation that we've had before, but the one thing I will say is that majority of the women were also having their menstrual cycle at the same time too, because that's something that happens. We all seem to copy each other on that. And so you've got a hotbed of emotions running around the room, full stop. If you've got women in menopause as well, that just adds to the situation. From my perspective, I don't think it was what I would have called a very playful place. Um, as in when I was working in the office, we had fun, but it was like fun time was like lunch times or after work. It was like the social time. I think when something funny happened, and I mean like whether somebody just tipped water all over themselves or somebody came out of the bathroom absolutely drenched because the force that the tap had broken and it exploded, you know, the whole office from it would ripple, you know, the laughter would start here where it just happened, and then by the time it got to the other end they would just be joining in with the laughter, and this lot down this end was still catcalling with it all and laughing their heads off. So I think the thing about the endorphins and the reaction, it's almost like a chain reaction, you know, feel good, feel good, feel good, feel good, and it layers, you know. And so the more people that are around you who are being lifted by it, I can absolutely see. I mean, the companies like Google and Microsoft and I'm trying to think of where else, like 3M. I've been consulting for those companies for like, gosh, 30 odd years, 35 years, even longer, maybe 36, 37. And when I was working with them, they used to have fun rooms. And I thought, aye, what's this then? Not sure I approve. And it turns out to be just a room full of beanbags. And you just go in there and sit and chill for 5 minutes if you needed to, or you could have a meeting in there. And could you imagine trying to sit your bum on a beanbag and like have a meeting? That in itself would bring, like, as you say, fun ideas, a different perspective, maybe. And they just had this idea that it would bring a fun element to those companies. And again, I think that's because they were software driven, like you say, they were kind of always ahead of the field. They knew what made people happy, and so those kind of places had those rooms long before we would even contemplate it. So I can absolutely see why the gaming world would be of that kind, because the software companies were, the computer companies were. And I think also the other thing I would say is when you're working under immense pressure, I think it can also be a hotbed for the wrong kind of emotions, the heightened emotions, the stress, the anger, the outbursts, all that kind of stuff. So if you can get rid of that by bringing in some light-hearted stuff, it kind of balances it all out. So I can definitely see why it would work. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you mentioned those bigger companies like Google that have dedicated spaces for play, whether they have pool tables. I know they use a lot of bean bags. I don't know what the draw is to bean bags, but maybe it's just to break up that monotony of sitting by a desk, having a different environment. And it does work. Productivity is better. Employees are more satisfied, less absenteeism as well. So there must be something to it. But why I wanted to focus on midlife and menopause and women in menopause, because as women, we take care of everyone else and we usually put ourselves last. That is usually the go to for most women I talk to. And we're taking care of anyone else, and we're taking on their stress. A lot of times we're internalizing their stress as well. So we're walking around very stressed. Then we're getting the physical symptoms of menopause. And when we're more stressed and more in that negative headspace, your symptoms actually feels worse. And when you go to the doctor, of course, their go-to is to give you some sort of medication to deal with whatever symptom you're going through. So I wanted to talk about, I thought it was so important to talk about not just ways to relieve stress, but being open and curious. And those are words I use all the time, Stacey, being open and curious to ways to focus on joy. So not just, the typical self-care things we like to do or people like to throw at us, but how do I find joy, especially in the workplace? And I was at a HR conference last week, and one of the speakers talked about play in the workplace, and he had us do a Mexican wave. And most of us know what a Mexican wave is. You get up, you lift your arms, you scream. And but he had us do the first one very, very slowly and very intentionally. So it's almost like you're getting up vertebrae by vertebrae and slowing it right down. And we all felt silly doing it, but in a good way because we're all doing it together. And I just thought if you took that simple thing and put it in an office where your supervisor or your manager is the one leading that and doing it with you, and everyone in the office is doing it together, there's so much good that can come out of that activity that probably would take 5 minutes. You're reducing stress, you're moving away from your screen, so your eyes are getting a little relaxed, reducing that cortisol, that stress hormone, giving your brain that relaxation so you have those good ideas. So I thought, Stacey, when you talked about that, that was such a good point because very rarely when we're crunching away in front of the computer, we get creative. When we step away and we allow ourselves to have that moment of creativity, whether it's taking a bath or having a coffee, just taking a mental break away from that rigorous time in front of the computer, we get such good ideas. So just doing that and encouraging employees, okay, after you do that exercise, and it doesn't have to be that, it could be play a favorite song every day. Someone picks their favorite song and you dance at your desk. And then you encourage people, okay, well, go for a coffee, go to the kitchen, go to the water cooler. So you're getting that social engagement as well. That that probably takes less than 10 minutes, but that can be really great for morale, that social togetherness, reducing that absenteeism because now you're seeing, okay, the supervisors or the managers, the one driving it, that person cares about my mental health. That person is encouraging us, okay, no, take a break. We need you to take a break. So I thought that was really impressive when I saw that, and it's something that we could, implement right away without any cost or real training. It's something we could do right away. Do we have any comments coming in? Because we can't see anything on Restream, and you're on mute.
Always
At
have
least I'm not seeing it.
comments.
Oh, yeah.
Let's welcome Linda. How are you doing, Linda? Linda, all the way in Canada. Always great to see you.
Hi.
So a random person who always comments. I don't know what's up with him. Yolanda, how you doing? Welcome.
Hi, Amanda.
So Tiffany made a good comment. So thank you for having this important conversation. Looking forward to learning and growing in the community on this topic. I also appreciate that how you share that it often arrives in the hardest season of our lives. Lisa, that's you, right? And she agrees with you. All right, those are the main ones. There's many more people here, but they're not commenting yet. And as I can see the numbers, and they got a lot more people. Say hi, say something. Share your insights on the topic if you want to. Share your experience. If you do want to come in the studio, the link is in the comment section of the event page. You could just DM me and say, send me. Don't DM me. Sorry, put it in the chat here. Link please, because we'd love to hear your thoughts. Of course we would. I'd love to hear your experiences, anything we can learn from you as well. So. Right, going back to my happy little world now, Lisa.
If you have anything to add, Annie, I would love to hear it. How do you find joy? I know you're not in menopause, but I know you are a very hard worker.
I don't know. I think as Paulette was talking, I guess, I don't know. I think there's something in this conversation where I don't know whether men are allowed to be kids all their lives. I should know I'm one of them, right? But it seems like women don't, if they don't want to be or are not happy being that childish person, that playful person. I don't know, maybe I'm generalizing, but my mother is not playful. My wife's not playful. Her mother's not playful. I'm saying there's something there where women don't seem to want to be the childish ones.
I think
And
we don't get to do it. I don't think it's not that we don't want to. I think we don't get to, because if we're both playing, then we I guess something will drop, something will not get done.
but it
And
won't.
when we're
That's not true. That's what I'm saying is a
but
belief, right?
yeah, it exactly. And I think especially women who have children and they're in that caregiver mode, even when their children get older, they're still in that mode. So I've had clients
Hmm.
where their children were, I think, in their 20s, and they were still worrying about the time they got home, if they did the laundry, if they did their laundry, right? So it's nothing that is affecting them personally, but they were always worried, and are you eating? Are you this? Are you that? And it took a long while for her to realize, listen, your kids are grown. They get to make their choices, right or wrong. You're there to guide when they come to you, but you have your life to live. And if you are constantly worrying about them and they're adults, then what is the time left for you? When do you get to do things
Hmm.
just for you? And I think that caregiver mode, whether it's parents, whether it's even pets, I know a lot of persons have pets who are ill. We're always in that caregiver taking care of others. So the mindset of play, it doesn't really come to us as easily as you're right. Men always video games or sports or something like that. So that's a very good point.
I'm hoping Stacey says it's a choice. I'm hoping she says that, but I could be wrong completely, right? So I'll leave that. So
What,
Dr. Josette has a question for you, Stacey. So can you talk about the nature or how nature integrates with your player approach to problem solving? That's just building off what I'm saying. I think even when you have problems, play can be the answer still, right? I think.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways and levels that I integrate nature into my approach. The first one is literally go outside. Go outside and frolic. Go put your feet in the grass barefoot. And I do agree. Let me backtrack to what Eddie said. He thinks it's a choice. I do think that a lot of women make that choice, that we have to be the responsible ones, and we take on burdens that don't necessarily belong to us, whether that is because of how we've been socialized in the world. I definitely grew up in a very playful household. My mom is playful, my dad is playful. That definitely has shaped me. My sisters are always cracking jokes, and you can't be tin skin in our household. So play has just been a formative part of my life, but I've also seen places where I substitute teach, and on the chalkboard or the whiteboard, it said no laughing. And I was so stunned for one of the teachers, no laughing. How can you do that? How can you live like that? So I think it is partly giving ourselves permission to find joy and to be playful. I mean, I play video games, so I don't think that's related to men. I think men just give themselves permission to do that, or maybe they feel entitled that they can do that because we women will take care of everything else. So some of it is speaking up for ourselves. But let me go back to the specific question with how nature integrates. So there's the literal level of being in nature. I go to parks and walk about. I talk to people. Like currently I'm doing pop-up parenting in the parks, because being in nature is good for you. It helps with your mental health and your stress. It's learning to observe what you see. I saw an iguana climbing a tree, or here's a squirrel. Some people find really cool plants. At the park I was at, I was surprised to see a mango tree. So there's that sense of wonder that comes from being in nature, because it's unexpected, right? I mean, we know things are out there, but when you find a beautiful flower that you weren't expecting, or a butterfly, that brings a sense of joy to people. Feeling the sun on your skin, the breeze as it blows by, that's the literal sense of what being in nature. If you take off your shoes and touch the ground barefoot, that helps to ground your body literally. And you're around, there's microbes in the dirt that have a positive impact on people. So that's the literal level of nature. A more esoteric aspect of nature is looking at cycles. The sun has a cycle, the moon has a cycle. As Paulette was talking about, when you get a bunch of women together, their cycles coalesce in the same time. And observing, there was a comedian, Brian Regan, and this really stuck with me. He talked about ants. He said, when you step on an ant hill, the ants don't pout. They don't go, "Oh man, what'd you do to my ant hill?" They scurry out the way, but then they immediately get back to rebuilding. So nature is a teacher in looking at how these things work, how the root system in trees, just understanding nature is a great teacher about understanding our lives, how all these different creatures and plants and animals work together. If you take the time to reflect, you get some insight into what is happening in your own world. And nature is expansive. It gives a sense of space. Nature right now is one of the biggest problems that we are trying to solve with climate change and environmental impact. But it doesn't have to be gloom and doom. It could just be because this is a beautiful place and we want to preserve it. When they recorded the voices of different animals and they kind of made the humpback whale one of the poster childs for nature, people responded because here's something beautiful. Here's something that we care about. That little monkey with the teddy bear, like that's a natural creature. And I think people tend to think that we're separate from nature. We're part of it. And when you integrate yourself into nature, you're giving yourself back a part of who you are. So I hope that answers your question, Dr. Giselle, about how nature integrates with my approach to problem solving.
I've got an interesting add-on there as well. Anytime that you feel overwhelmed or emotions are running high or you are feeling beaten by something, whatever the problem is, whatever the issue is, they always say just change your environment. So whether it's go to the coffee machine, whether it's go downstairs to the cafeteria, whether it's pop outside and ground yourself, whatever you're doing, it's that change, that reset. It's almost like stick a pen in and we reset ourselves. We give ourselves permission to be reset. And when your mind is spiraling, so let's just say you have a problem and you've tried and tried and tried to fix this problem and you can't. And you know the boss is asking for an answer and you're not going to be able to come back with the answer and you don't know what to do to fix the problem. And you take yourself outside and you just give yourself that 5-minute reset. And the really weird thing about it will be that in the lift on the way back up, it will come. And you don't know why. It's just that it was always there. But there was so much confusion and panic and as you say, the cortisol, all these endorphins, good and bad, confuse us. They just act like barriers. So the answer was always there, but we kind of cover it up with all this talk. And a lot of it will be the negative self-talk, which will be, You don't know. You're not going to be able to do it. It's not going to work. You're going to let the team down, blah, blah, blah. And then there'll be the other half of you going, I can do it. I just need another few hours. They're not being reasonable. They're not being fair to me. They put me under too much pressure. And, you've got this whole, like, dare I say, team meeting going on in your head. And that taking you outside or taking yourself away from that just for 5-10 minutes even can reset you. And I think that is so important, to give yourself those resets, especially if you're on the neurodivergent side. 1 minute you can be thinking about one thing, then you'll be off thinking about something else, and trying to bring yourself back to concentrate on a specific task can be very difficult. So the reset, I used to say to Ben, it's an awful thing to say now, but it was the way that I was taught. I used to say, when you find yourself wandering, stick your fingernail into your hand, right? Just gently. And you'll be like, oh. And that's like your reset button. That's like me sticking a pen in the side of the router, right? That just gives you a moment to go, what's that? And that's it. That's the reset. If you can't leave the room, and you're not allowed to, because often the classes don't allow it, and if you're seen as somebody who has a habit of looking out the window, even though you're paying 100% of attention to the room, you're looking out the window because that's your mind. Your mind allows you to do that, can do those two things. To the teacher, it's not paying attention, but you can answer every question they ask, but that they don't understand that. And so sometimes I used to say to him, if you feel yourself wandering and you're going to get shouted at for doing it, just put your hand there and give yourself a little pinch in that little bit of skin, which is also a great place to stop a migraine, by the way. But just touch yourself there, or put a fingernail in, and it will just be like your little reset button. And he used to find that in assemblies, when he was really like losing it, because he'd had to sit still for an hour and a half, if it was, some sort of presentation, he would be climbing the walls. He used to sit and twiddle with that little bit of skin, and it was like a fidget spinner, That was the original fidget spinner, like 17 years ago. That was his fidget spinner. And he talks about it even now, like, if he's in a lecture, he'll find himself like, he knows then that his mind's wandered. He'll pull himself back to the room. And I think that's all part of what we're talking about here is, there's no joy in any of what we're talking about. The joy comes when we turn all that noise off. The joy comes when we actually say, don't listen to your negative narrative. How about we listen to the positive narrative today? Let's make today a positive day. Let's make today a playful day. Let's make today a fun day. Let's not be, the miserable one in the office. Because one rotten apple can take a whole fruit dish down. And it's true. If you've got one grumpy, moody, bad-tempered, whatever, they can really pull the office atmosphere down. And it's really hard to fight that, because you're trying to keep yourself in check, because you don't want to be the cause of that person escalating even higher. And also you don't want to be the one that puts your head above the parapet and gets shouted at. So it's like a very difficult tightrope you walk. But if you're like Stacey's saying, trying to find the fun in the day, that person's draining the fun. She's sucking the life out of the fun. And so, you do need to understand that not everybody's a fun person. Not everybody is up for a laugh. Not everybody finds, somebody falling off their chair funny. Not everybody finds somebody slipping on a banana skin funny. There'll be us not cracking up, with laughter, and somebody else thinking, why would you laugh? That person could have hurt themselves, and you'd be like, oh my God, that was the funniest thing I've seen all day. Do you know what I mean? It's just a different kind of personality and a different trait almost within us. Like British people are sarcastic. We are the most sarcastic nation on the planet. We can be absolutely cruel as can be and still be laughing, right? You're laughing at the stupidity of somebody, but not nastily. But did they really say that? Did you really say that? And then
I think
somebody,
that's why I relate to British humor so well
exactly,
more than America.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
that's my
and it's
nature.
really interesting that when I talk sometimes to my American counterparts, they're not always getting me, and I'm like, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? And then I realize that they're not in the sarcasm game. They're not in that arena, you know? And so I rewind and find myself backpedaling and saying, oh, that's just my silly sense of humor. Just ignore me. So I think that's, we really do have to be mindful of all the different cultures, all the different issues that we can get ourselves into. But I think we must find a common ground that is fun, common ground that makes us laugh, a common ground that creates an entertainment, even in the most difficult and stressful times. Just a very quick story. I went into surgery to have a back operation, and it was major back surgery, and the spinal neurosurgeon came in, and he said to me, how bad is the pain? And I said, out of what? And he said, well, out of 10. And I said, do you watch I'm a Celebrity get me out of here? And he was like, yeah. And I said, will you line up 10 kangaroo willies and I'll eat the lot? If you take the pain away, I'll eat the lot. And this surgeon, he had gadgets in his hands, and he couldn't come near me for laughing. And then there were people in there from different languages, and he was translating, and then the chuckle would come from over there, and then before you knew where it was, the whole of the theatre was laughing. And then the anaesthetist said, best thing to do with her is put her to sleep. And that was it. That was good night. It was like, shut her up, because we can't get on with the job.
Oh my
But I
gosh. You need a
really,
disclaimer before you go into any surgery, Paulette.
exactly, 10 kangaroo willies.
Oh, wow. I don't think I could get that image out of my head now. Great. Um, but what you all were talking about, going back to nature, is so very important. You find so many companies taking their work retreats or their annual get-togethers into nature because they want to get out of the office, but they want people to experience that camaraderie and that gathering, but they want to do it in nature so they get the benefits from it. So it doesn't matter if you're in an office or if you work from home. Find ways to get into nature, do that grounding. Walking barefoot on the grass, I think, is such a simple act, but so very important. For me, if I see butterflies, that brings me joy. Bubbles and butterflies, that's what I live for, right? So I have those old, remember those toys where you could blow bubbles with the soap water?
I have it
That's
on
my
my desk.
that is my thing. That brings me joy. That simple thing. So if I'm particularly stressed or I'm working out some sort of problem with my programs, whatever it is, I take a 5 minutes and I just start blowing bubbles and looking at the different colors and just to get that relief. And usually the answer comes to me. So it doesn't have to be expensive. If you're listening live or on the replay, please share with us in the chat what you do to bring you joy, especially when you're stressed. Because not everything will work for everyone. As Paulette was saying, we have to be mindful of the cultures, where we're at, certain things, the the sign with no laughing, strange sign, but I mean, we have to be mindful of the environment we're in and what's allowed and what's not. and be open and curious to trying different things, because at the end of the day, stress skills and being in menopause, that is stressful enough. To add to that doesn't make sense. So anywhere we can find little moments of joy, and it doesn't mean the whole day will be laughing, and that's not life, right? That's not realistic. But finding those moments of joy where we could inject it, not much money, a little 5 minutes every hour, I think goes a long way to not just reducing that stress, but how we experience those symptoms. We're proving it time and time again. The more positive you are, the less stress you have, the symptoms actually feel less. So it's important to find those moments of joy. Um, and if you have any comments of your live, please let us know where you're joining from. Ask your questions, leave your comments, because we really can't see you on Restream unless you type it in the comment section.
Indeed. No, so let me correct myself. No, it's Sarah June who asked that question about nature. Nature
Okay.
Oh, that's a new name. Hi.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, I don't think we met before, Sarah June.
Great to see you here, Sarah June.
I like this. Joy equals time for a nap. Isn't that so true, right? No, that's
Yes,
happened for
very
me, right?
important.
No, if I can go back to your point very quickly, Lisa, then I'll give you the mic. Of course, I think we can find our own funny. I think by the time you get to midlife, what are you waiting for? If it's funny to you, then laugh. And I'm saying, why do you want to hold it in when, you know? I think about this time is a time when you're not going to stop me being me. And if I find that funny, I will laugh. If you don't like it, as long as it's not intentional, it's not deliberately hurting anyone. I don't see why I shouldn't, react the way I feel naturally to do so. Right? That's just my thought. Go on, please. I said I passed the mic.
I wanted to piggyback on something that Paulette said, and I think that there is this idea that play is silly and play is all about funs and haha laughter, and that's a part of it. But I want people to expand their idea of play, because I think you need some measure of psychological safety when you engage in play, especially in teams. If you've ever played a group game, you have to trust your partners. You have to have effective communication. If you're playing, a video game together, people determine the roles that they're going to play, or team sports. They have to trust that person that's with them. But I also want to expand people to think of play really as problem solving, because if you, for example, are creating a spreadsheet or you're trying to build a dashboard, you have a lot of constraints when you're building this, and you have to get creative about how to make this happen. And people think of play as all fun and games, but it's also when you're trying to write that perfect line of code, you're iterating, you're trying new things. You're like, did this work? Nope, this didn't work. That's why children usually beat trained professionals in things like the marshmallow challenge, because they're willing to play, they're willing to do things. So play is a mindset. It's not just about have fun and laughter. It is about engaging and being present, and bringing your whole self in perspective to something, because the ideas that you come about, like Annie's talking about, like if you find something funny, that might be a clue as to we might be onto something here. So I just wanted to touch on that play is so much more expansive than people give it credit for.
I'll also go on to piggyback on what you just said, and that is that I studied play therapy for a little while, and I'm going to try not to swear. So remember, I'm trying hard not to swear, okay? There was a young lad who had been in a car accident, and they had said he seems perfectly fine. It was a head-on collision. It was absolutely traumatic. The other driver was incredibly damaged. They lived, but in a very bad way. My friend Kim, who was the driver of the car that got hit, she had bits of glass just everywhere. They're just all over her. The windscreen came in, the two side windows came in. But her son, who was sitting in the back seat, was fine. But they were engaging in play therapy to make sure that he was fine. And I said, oh, would you mind if I come along? Because it's part of a module I'm doing and I could really do with some work. And she said, yeah, come along and watch. You know, you're allowed to sit the other side of the glass window. So I was like, okay. And then they were like, he was playing with his cars really happily. Everything was fine. And then all of a sudden, like, if you imagine, I'm just going to pick two items up without trying to draw myself. If you imagine, he picked up two cars, right? And he was going, what word can I say? Rhymes with fit. And he was going, fit, 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 fit. And as he was smashing the cars together, right? But he wasn't saying fit. He was saying the other word. And obviously that was the last word that he'd heard his mum say when the accident happened. And so to him, to crash the cars together meant you say that word, you see. And so the lady said, does that help you when you say that? And he said, yeah, I feel much better. And so she said, well, that's fine. But can we think of a different word? Because that's quite a grown-up word. And he was like, okay. And then she said, what word could you come up with? And he went, no, I like that word. She was like, no, I think we'll come up with a different word. And she said, what about bang? And he's looking at her as if to say, bang and fit? There's just no comparison, you know, bang, fit. No, I much prefer the fit word. And so she was like trying so hard, bless her heart. And in the end, they settled for two bangs and two fits. But the point was that is fun. That is a child learning through fun that they are okay, that this happened and they got out of it and they were fine. So the expression of the accident was still very visible to him, but when they were laughing about the name and what they could call this word, it was just so funny. Me and Kim were like killing ourselves at laughter in behind the glass, you know, like he didn't know because it's soundproof. But he was with a psychotherapist, and she was a play specialist, and she was really trying hard to get him to stop swearing, but it wasn't happening. But it was a release. And I think part of what you're talking about with problem solving and that whole the whole theory, I'm sure, behind it is that it is a release, and that release allows you to problem solve because it frees your mind. And I think that's a really great way to think about problem solving. We often have problem solving breakdowns. We've got a problem, we can't handle it, we throw things in the air, stomp out the room, it's all a big disaster, you know. But if we took the approach that Stacey's suggesting, which is that we actually look at the problem, try to work out the problem, take a break, go away from the problem, come back from the problem, your mind is clearer, you're able to face it, and maybe face it in a more positive way. Maybe it's about changing that mindset, as you say, to not just fun, but positive. I think we can get bogged down in the negative so easily. And then it's very hard to problem solve when you've got a negative mindset. So I think possibly that is very much the fun-led mindset idea as well. I love that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I really do. So Yolanda says going for a walk on a tree-lined street like trail helps to relieve stress. That thing that we're trying to release is a stress thing, really, if you ask me, right? And stress is a silent killer. I agree. I think that I think this goes beyond finding joy. Again, I think goes beyond just having fun. I think it's about knowing who you are, knowing what brings you, what makes you happy. I said, and I mean, for me, I said I can go from food to even TV programs. I think too much. We try and hold too much in to please others. And I think my plea to everyone who's here today, my plea to myself after time is, there comes a time when you just have to do you. Do you, whatever that may be. As long as you're not harming anyone, then find, make yourself happy. Make the world a happy. If you're happy, the world's a happier place, rather than trying to fit into a box. This is a task you don't like doing. Don't do it. Get someone else to do it. We can. That's all part of this life of joy, if you ask me, right? Do what you want to do, feel how you want to feel, and do more of that rather than doing any of the other stuff.
And I think for women, we get so negative and we get that guilt and that shame when something doesn't work for us. It worked for our friend, it worked for everyone else, but why doesn't it work for me? We need to give ourselves that grace to realize everyone is different. Remember, Paulette talked about sarcasm being humorous for them, and maybe for Americans it isn't. So sometimes you can't figure it out right away, but again, it's being that open, curious nature to try one thing. If it doesn't work, okay, maybe it's not for me. Let's try something else. But also give yourself time to see if it really is for you. So don't just try different things back to back to back. Give it time. Okay, this really doesn't work for me. It doesn't feel right in my body. It's not reducing stress in the way I want to. That's okay. We move to something else. So as we give the ideas here, remember it's not for everyone, but try different things. And if you're not getting the results you want to, then reach out. Reach out to us and reach out into our DMs. We're all on LinkedIn, and ask a question. Let us give you that support. So as we are on that topic of finding ways to find joy, Stacey, what are some of the ways that you suggest to your clients? Because you talked about it's not just about the laughter part. And I know for a lot of companies, when they're looking to relieve stress, they talk about maybe going to the bar, to the pub, and alcohol is involved. And that doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes that's just a mask to cover up what's really going on. So, what are some of the ways that we can use that doesn't cost a lot, something that women can try from tomorrow, maybe, to find that joy or start creating that life of joy?
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be found, it's there. It's a decision. And I will I will come at it from a story of, because I wanted to tie this back into how do we create this of during menopause. And I was at a point in my life where I'd had a major surgery. I just found out that my dad had cancer. I have kids. I worked a full-time job. And the first thing that I decided was that I am going to relentlessly protect my joy. I'm going to relentlessly protect my joy. Just because these things are happening doesn't mean that it is the end of the world. I'm going to look for and find the opportunities in this situation. And some of the opportunities were establishing boundaries. I think a lot of women, our boundaries are kind of porous and we kind of take on a little bit of the martyr role. But it was a time of learning how to have conversations that, hey, I know you don't like this, but if we do things just how you want it, you have the most expensive Uber drivers on earth, right? You have to work with us in certain things. So that was one. The other thing is about taking accountability of your role in a situation. your role in the life that you're creating. And I'm not saying blame the victim. We are absolutely living in a time where there is such a pressure cooker of external factors on us. There's so many things that we are not able to control. And the one thing you can control is how you decide to react to it. And I'm not saying to be Pollyanna. If you're angry, say, I'm angry, use your words. But then think about, what am I going to do with that? If you're going through the menopause, I find, having a sense of humor does help. I like to personify things sometimes. If you have that negative critic in your head, give it a name. I heard this on a podcast and I loved it. I think their name was Darlene. Oh, that's just no offense to any Darlenes out there, but that's just Darlene, she's acting up again, or that's just Gerard, or whatever you want to call it. Just have fun with some of the things, your symptoms, like, oh, it's my own private summer if you're getting a hot flash. Because I had people that had really horrible hot flashes and they just got to a point where all they could do was laugh. They're like, this is who I am. This is happening right now. Take it or leave it. I'm going to go get a towel, and just don't apologize for being who you are. And it's very few women leaders that are that courageous to speak that. I had a HR leader and she was bold enough to say, I'm on my period today and I'm cramping and I hate everybody right now. Like, that's just where I'm at, right? And it kind of it's shocking, but it kind of gives other people permission to be themselves. And that's why I really love what Annie was saying. Like, be your whole self. And yes, there's risk in that. There absolutely is risk in that. There's risk in being called too much. You're not, you're difficult. You're not enough. But if you are true to yourself, I think that gives other people permission to start asking questions about, well, why is it this way? Why are we doing it this way? When I got after Hurricane Andrew, I got carjacked, and it was very traumatic. They held a gun to me, and it was kids, right? And I had enough wherewithal to, like, hey, can I have my pocketbook, because the DMV lines are horrible and I don't want to do my license again. And they actually let me have my purse, and I came home. I actually had credit cards in there and anything, right? And I came home and I'm like, yeah, I got carjacked. And they're like, it's a joke, right? I'm like, no. And I started crying because that was not a great experience. But my family immediately was like, wow, they really didn't want to take the jitney, right? Like, we just found the humor in a situation. You find the humor when it's raining cats and dogs. Like, even yesterday, we had the cat needed a bath because it got into some mess, and then my kid broke a bottle of olive oil, and you could sit there and go, oh, woe is me, this is horrible. Or it's like, wow, the floor is immaculate because she cleaned it up and used the steam mop and everything. Like, wow, the floor has never been this clean. So some of it is, what is your mindset about this situation? Because joy starts with a decision. It starts with a decision that I'm going to protect my joy. And I'll turn it over if you all want to add other things. I think people like the sense of humor. And yeah.
I love
Just,
that joy starts with a decision.
I was just going to
I
say,
love that.
Lisa, just a
Yeah.
quickie that I think you'll really appreciate. Working in an office, we were like 2,500 people in the trading rooms at the time. Big office. And you would hear constantly that there were people calling in. I had a trading team of about 18, but we'd have a constant phone call coming in of, can I speak to the person in charge of stationery? Right? Can I speak to the person in charge of stationery? And you're like, look, we're really busy. We're up to our neck in it. We don't buy the envelopes. The envelopes are bought by head office. We're just a trading room. So anyway, this particular day, and I don't know what got into me. I really don't. But sometimes things do get into me, clearly. The cleaner had left the mop and bucket on the side. right? And it didn't smell very nice. And she'd left the mop standing upright, okay? So there was this kind of like moppy kind of like hair. And I went and got a piece of paper and I drew a face. Just a circle, rubbish face, but a face. You know, this is long before emojis were around. You know, this is back in the day. And I just sellotaped the face onto this mop. And I said, if in future anybody phones for stationery, we're going to send them to Mildred Mildew, because it smelt mildewy. So I said, Mildred Mildew is in charge of stationery. Okay, so if anyone phones up and asks to speak to the stationery person, they want to speak to Mildred, okay? But Mildred only works 1 day a week, and she is only available between the hours of 11 and 12, and she often takes an early lunch. So everybody was just crying with laughter that she only works 1 day a week and she only works 1 hour a week. And quite often you can't catch her because she takes a no lunch. So no more was said about it. It was just a funny, silly moment. Everyone was, and we left the mop, right? And the cleaner wouldn't use that mop. She got a different one because it was Mildred, right? And the next thing you know is Mildred started receiving her own post. And, you know, it would be like, further to our recent conversation. And you're like, what, you spoke to a mop? Right? And then it took on a whole new world. The whole of the trading floor was referring anyone who phoned up asking to speak to the stationery department to Mildred. So Mildred had her own fan club. She had people sending her letters, and it would be further to our recent conversation. Please find enclosed a quote. And Mildred has never spoken to anybody, and yet she had literally, like, it was the funniest thing that ever happened. And, you know, it came from something and nothing. It's just being fed up with people bombarding us with requests for stationery salespeople. And I apologize to anyone selling stationery, because we really did, you know, I mean, nobody probably is listening now, but I just know that we had that going for years. I reckon that went on for about 3 years, to my knowledge. And Mildred had 2 mop heads. She was a bit like Trigger's broom. You'll know that the joke, because she did smell. And so we asked if we could have a new head. And the woman said, I can do better than that. I've got a ginger wig at home. So she put a new mop head and put a ginger wig on her. So she had a makeover. And then somebody else said, I'm sure we can get us some clothes from the charity shop. And the next thing you know, this living mop had a dress on. And honestly, the whole thing became the funniest thing ever. And she got a proper lanyard with a name on it and head of stationery. And, you know, gradually it got more and more elaborate over time. Everybody added a bit to the story. And, you know, whether or not Mildred's still going, I don't know. But the thing about it is, it's like you said, you take a little tiny little seed, and then everybody kind of gets on board with it, and it grew into so much fun. And, you know, and to just be able to give the name, you know, Mildred Mildew, I mean, can you imagine? And they'd be like, oh, is that Miss or Mrs? And you go, no, Ms. And you go, oh, Ms. Oh, okay. So you write to Ms. Mildred Mildew. Okay, fine. You know, and people just used to just laugh. And when she got her own lanyard, that was one of the funniest moments in the whole of STC for me. It was the day she got her lanyard. I mean, the dress, the mop, the wig, all of it. But
And it
it's
didn't cost very much.
cost
It didn't take a
nothing.
lot of effort. We didn't have to plan anything. And yet, still,
No.
that would have brought the whole team joy. They would have wanted to come to
Yeah.
work, more often, be part of it, be part of that story. Just from that, I mean, it's so silly, but that is the sort of thing we're talking about. So it's remaining open and curious to be able to receive these things, and having that mindset where we're choosing joy. And I think that line you said, Stacey, it starts with that decision to make yourself joyful. It's not that we're ignoring the problems. It's not that we're sticking our heads into the sand and saying, nothing is happening. We're acknowledging everything, we're dealing with everything, but there comes a point where if we're just in that negative space, that's all we see. And we can't see beyond that. So choosing joy is what we're talking about. And the more we choose it, the more we make it a decision, that's when things start to change. And that's when menopause doesn't feel so hard. And that's when we're able to relate to our families and co-workers in a better way. And you're on mute.
I'm sure I can say, I'm sure families will be happier if you had a more joyful approach, a more playful, a less serious approach to life. It'd be nice. So rather than everyone sort of lining up at the door because you're coming home from work, we know what's going to happen. The explosion's coming. Let's just wait patiently. It's going to happen. We came with a whole idea. With the other approach, we were like, wow. It doesn't, like you say, it doesn't change. It doesn't mean nothing's wrong. It doesn't mean that you don't feel away. But no, at least everyone will be in a better mood. Everyone will be more understanding and more open to interacting, call it that. So I love what Dr. Leslie says. If you do things to hurt others, be responsible and apologize. I think that talks about the fear of what if I upset them? What if they take it badly? What if they do? Yeah, sorry. It wasn't intentional to hurt anyone, and move on. That's life, right? That no one.
Yeah, but it goes back to what you were saying, Annie. If we come from a place of not hurting the person, that's not our intention.
Yes.
Then if it happens, you assess the situation, you tell the person, sorry, okay, obviously they're not meant to be your people, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
And you move on. But yeah, I mean, of course, if you're coming home in a bad mood, so this is something I always tell people, sometimes because of the hormonal changes, you can't help those mood swings. So if it does happen, of course, you come back, you assess, you come back and apologize. But I also tell, especially if it's families, if you're the woman coming home in that mood, and it's not something you can change, it's not something you can decide, okay, I'm coming home with joy. No, you're in that space right now. You can send a message to your family, listen, today was a hard day. I need a couple hours to myself. That's okay too. We don't need to apologize for that. We don't need to feel guilty for that. And it's a lot better if you let them know, okay, this can happen. If it's going to happen, I'm going to let you know. Just give me some space. I will work on myself, whether I need to cry, whether I need to bang the pillows, punch them, whatever it is I need to do to get out of that. And then after I can come back and deal with whatever I need to deal with at home. But it goes back to that communication. It goes back to that decision making. I saw we had a couple more comments as well. I don't know if you're seeing it.
I think it's also self-awareness, be honest with yourself, how you are feeling, on the day, really. Jay, how you doing? I don't know how you pronounce it. Greetings, my Menomorphosis friends. How you doing, Jay? I love what Sarah June is saying. I think it's still Sarah June. She says,
no, it's Alison.
It's Alison. Cultivates a sense of humor. That's a good one. Again, back to the point, Lisa. You seem to just have a sense of humor that works for you, right? That brings you some happiness. You can have some fun amongst the other things. She says it's either that or get cranky from this time forth into forever. Isn't that a scary thought?
I mean that's a choice as well, but I prefer not to make that choice.
But that's a risk. So we can choose to be another way. That's the point. Whatever that other way is, be a bit more yourself. Find the things that give you happiness. So as I've said already, I'm all for doing more of that. Whatever
Yeah.
gives you joy, go for it. As long as no one's affected negatively, go for it. Enjoy it. Cyrus, we see you as well, my friends. It's good to see you all.
Hi,
So I'm glad
Cyrus. It's been a while.
yeah, it's still
But I
there.
saw him. I saw him in your room earlier.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
making
yes.
his perplexity and his lasagna, vegetable lasagna. But yes, Cyrus is fun. Right. I
So,
guess we better give Stacey the mic back, right? Stacey, have you got some main tips that we can learn from you today to find this
Yeah,
joy in our lives?
I wanted to, before I give some more tips, I wanted to piggyback on what you're talking about with as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. And I think sometimes as women, especially if we're the primary caretakers, I think we feel that by taking this time for ourselves, we are hurting somebody because we let something fall through the cracks or something didn't get done. And now we blame ourselves and feel like, see, this is why we can't have nice things. This is why it can't be fun because I am causing harm. And I think step one is reframing. If it's something perhaps that your your kids don't get to do a certain thing, or you normally do something and you just couldn't do it because of your symptoms or whatever, it's thinking about, I gave my kids an opportunity to problem solve, especially if you finally make that time to reflect. Is this something that they can start learning how to do? What is in your realm of responsibility and what is in their realm of responsibility? And the struggle is where learning happens, allowing people to be uncomfortable, right? When you see a toddler trying to walk and they fall down and they cry, you don't go, "Oh baby, I'm just going to carry you for the rest of your life." You say, "That's okay. Try again. You're okay." And they get up and they try again. And it's the same thing with these things that we feel are is our load to carry. Make that time to reflect on what's really yours. So reframing a situation is one way to create joy. Like I looked at the hot mess from yesterday and it's like, cool, the floor is immaculate. Another thing is breathe. Breathing is so underrated because when you are stressed out, you're not breathing. So take that 3 deep breaths. And everyone can do it right now. Let's take a deep breath in, exhale and sigh. Deep breath in and exhale. Final one, deep breath in and exhale. And even with the bubbles, blowing bubbles, you're kind of breathing through pursed lips. That helps to calm down your vagus nerve. So breathing is important. Take advantage of the transitions. And you were talking about, mom coming home and Lisa says you might text them, "Hey, I'm having a bad day. I just need some time." My eldest and I spend an inordinate amount of time in the car sometimes when we get home. We make that transition space. And I will just sit there sometimes and play my block blasting game or just some just some foolishness. But it's not foolishness. It's that decompression time that I really need. And you can reframe that by saying, I am resourcing myself, I'm replenishing myself, I'm renewing myself so that I can do the job that has been given to me as a parent or as a caretaker, as a pet companion, as a pet parent, all those things. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And I'm a big fan of putting on the oxygen mask first, and people think it might be a nice to have, but what I learned was when you're in a plane situation and the oxygen drops, if you don't put on the mask, you will pass out and then you cannot be of help to anyone. That's why you need to put on your oxygen mask first. So find those ways to resource and replenish yourself. It's not selfish. You are actually being in a better position to do all those responsibilities that you have. I'm a big fan of play from a creative aspect because it gives you a sense of accomplishment and it doesn't take long to do it. And you don't have to be Picasso, you don't have to be anything. You can just try sketching, just try noticing something for 5 minutes. You're not trying to be, like I said, the Picasso or Rembrandt or anything. You're just trying to be present and create something. Try out a new signature. Do something with your left hand. Create a silly dance. If you are really upset about something, try and think about a new way of expressing it. What does your job look like as an interpretive dance? Right? Make a song, make a parody song about your situation. Everybody loves those parody songs. You've probably seen parody songs about menopause. You know, if you were going to make menopause the game, how would you play? What would that look like? Those are ways to be creative and look at your situation in a different way. Meditate, journal. I like journaling and I honestly don't do it often enough. It's a good way to have a conversation with yourself. I love Paulette's example about the squeezing that meant that migraine point. That's an important one. And it's also sneak in some activities. If you're stuck on a call, you can do calf raises. Like I'm doing calf raises right now. Would you know that? No, you wouldn't know that. It gets some movement going in your body. And I learned this from a friend of mine, Rajesh, who is also a mindfulness coach. And that is a way to tap into your body and calm you down. So find things that help you calm down. Think about today. Sorry, give a tip today on how could this be worse? How could you make this worse? Don't do it. Just think about how could I make this situation worse? And get a laugh out of it. But then generally, if you do the opposite, you can kind of reverse engineer yourself to a better situation. So if you're coming home, you're having a hot flash, the kids tell you the cat threw up, and you forgot to pay a bill, or just all these things are happening. You can just say, how could I make this worse? You could complain about it, you can throw something, you can rob a bank, right? And just sometimes being as ridiculous as you want, and don't do it. I'm not advocating for you to do it. And then take a step back and say, okay, well, that's not going to help me. So what if I just said, hey, I need a moment? Advocate for yourself. I need a moment. I need 5 minutes. I love you all. Go to the bathroom and just lock yourself in there. I need 5 minutes. And it's okay to ask for that. You can also check in with yourself. Every day we wash our hands, especially since COVID, you're washing your hands. Use that time to check in with yourself, to notice just what it feels like to wash your hands and go, self, how you doing? Like, hey, we're not that good today. Okay. What do you need? Maybe we need a cup of water. Maybe we need chocolate. Maybe we need to take a walk. But I also still do encourage play, because you can learn a lot from play. When Paulette was talking about the little boy with the fit thing, I learned how to be more courageous through play. I was playing this dungeon crawler video game. You're attacking the monsters, and I noticed that when I'm really stressed out, I will default to that game. And I think it was a way for me to fight the monsters that are in my head and learn how to level up, learn how to go into the dungeon and expect that I'm going to find something cool to help me. because when I first started, I was wasting so much money trying to buy in supplies and all these things. But they had fishing ponds. You could go fishing and find things. And I noticed as I played that game, I was more likely to take risks. I was more likely to walk away from things and try something new, because you reach a point where what's working isn't working anymore, especially with menopause. The things that used to make sense, maybe now they taste horrible to you. Maybe you didn't have high blood pressure before, but now you have high blood pressure, or your ears are itchy, or whatever else. So it's finding and rediscovering yourself and advocating for yourself. It's okay to say, I need a break, or I'm going to walk around the block. It's okay to advocate for yourself, because you are the boss of you. So those are some of the tips I have to create a life of joy. If I had to summarize it, one, look at your mindset, reframe a situation, try and find the positive thing, breathe, do things that get you connected and in touch with your body. Your body has a lot of wisdom if you choose to listen to it. Advocate for yourself and help someone else. Be in community. Maybe have a menopause group. If you have friends going through the same thing, have a menopause group chat or something like that. And you guys can just vent about what's happening that day. Having that support system will help you. I love that there are men in the chat right now and here. So like, talk to your partner or talk to the people in your life. This is what's happening. This is the support that I need. I I want to be happy. I want you to be happy, but I can't be everything to everyone. I need to put on that oxygen mask for myself and have fun. There's nothing wrong with having fun. I've seen people, I used to host a play challenge, and people have like posted a video. I didn't even ask them. They put, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm in the middle of the forest because I'm doing this play challenge and I'm with my dog and it's amazing." Like, rediscovering yourself and giving yourself permission to have fun. It is necessary. It is a stress relief. It is vital for your existence. Fun and play are not a nice to have. They are critical for your problem solving. They're critical for your regulation, team building, all of those things. Effective communication, you can learn that through play.
I agree 100%. Yolanda agrees with you too, by the way. Yeah, it's a good advice to advocate for yourself. That's a thing that we have to learn. Of course, I see Miss Pepperoni is here as well. How are you doing? So glad you're here, Miss Noni.
Hi, Noni.
I haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paulette and you, Lisa, you're fired.
Just a quick one. I'm going to tell you something funny.
Can I just fire both of you quick? And I'll say with Stacey. A woman that plays
more
games.
fun. I know. She's much more fun. Yeah. I was going to tell you, like, we used to have a thing. I mean, this goes back when we first started getting emails. Crikey, how many years ago was that? Come on, Annie. How many years ago was it we started getting emails? So I had my first BlackBerry. It must be 35 years ago. Maybe 40 years ago. But it was 35 years ago. But the thing about it was, it suddenly meant you were available to everybody all the time, right? That's a horrible thing. When you've never had that, and then suddenly you've got this thing that vibrates and tells you you've got an email, right? So on a Friday, I would only answer my emails if there was a joke attached. If there wasn't a joke attached, I wouldn't answer my emails. And we called it the Friday afternoon joking, right? And so after 12 p.m. lunchtime, it was the Friday afternoon, the joking. And then my job was then to pass the joke on, right? And then I had to send them a joke back. And then before you knew where you were, this joking thing just went company wide. Friday afternoon jokings was a thing. And it became like the most fun thing that happened on a Friday. And they weren't always the cleanest jokes. They probably wouldn't be acceptable now, most of them. But the point is that back in the day, before we became quite sensitive and woke, we got away with murder back then. But saying that, that was one thing I remember. And I also remember my very first training session at Carnegie. And they said to me, I was being trained to be a public speaker. And I was 21, and that's young. And they were saying to me, look, you're going to be training people, you're going to be standing in front of big audiences. We need you to, not be so fearful. And I'd be like, how do you know I'm fearful? And it'd be like something to do with like you're sweating and your knees are knocking. And I'd be like, oh, that might be my giveaway. He said, and also look at your palms. And they'd be like pouring, like dripping. And I said, you've done this before, haven't you? And he just sort of laughed at me. And he said, look, you just have to imagine them all without any clothes on. And I was like, I can't possibly do that. There's no way. I'm a good Catholic girl. There's no way I can imagine them all without any clothes on. That's just not going to work for me. So he said, okay, imagine them all in curlers then. They're all in curlers, all having their hair permed, sitting in the audience. And he said, suddenly they're not scary anymore, are they? And I was like, no, they're not as scary in rollers as they were without their clothes on. But, I'll never forget that. And I must have used that a million times, retraining people and showing people how. I even said it to somebody when we were doing our authors speakers conference, if you remember, just to not imagine that everybody is out there to, laugh at you, to have a go at you or to try and pick you up on stuff, just assume that everybody is either in rollers or got no clothes on. And whatever floats your boat in terms of humor, that's the one to go with, and then they're not scary anymore. And I think that's about that fun element of fear. You've got fear and fun, and they're very close together. And why do we like roller coasters? Because they're fun and fear, right? They're that close. But fear of standing in front of an audience can be, incredibly scary, especially if you've had an occurrence when you were younger, where you spoke out and someone laughed at you or something. You're going to remember that always. So I can always remember just saying to somebody, be completely relaxed, and that's the way forward. And they looked at me as if to say, did you just fall off of out the sky? Because there's no way I'm going to look out at the audience and not be scared. And then I said, well, imagine they're wearing rollers. And he was like, even the bald ones? And I was like, yeah, to them too. Or clowns' hats, whatever you fancy. Or not clowns, I'm scared of clowns. But then put them all in rollers, And the idea that they could look out and just imagine a sea of people, men and women, who sitting there in the rollers, just suddenly brought them all back down to they were little people that weren't scary. There weren't big, scary, beastly monsters or whatever out in the audience. And I think that that's the part of what you're talking about, Stacey, is that element of just not being so cautious, allowing caution to go to one side and curiosity to come in, and allowing fun to come in and fear to go out to a degree. And I think that is where, certainly from the trainings that I've given and the trainings I've done, people feel so much more relaxed when they're not in fear. They can't speak when they're in fear. It almost feels like their throat's being, dried out. And I mean, even for example, we used to have audio rooms. our audio rooms could have 100 people in them, and there would be 20 people queuing up to get on stage. And it's true, isn't it? And then we went over to videos. You have to invite people, because you won't really get 2 or 3 people might come up if you're lucky. If you've got a room where the topic is really responsive, you might get 3 or 4 people come up, but that's it. I used to have people queuing up at 20, 30 people, and Annie would be like, Paula, we can't let them all speak, not 20, 30 people. This is crazy. We'll be here till midnight, It's true, 7 o'clock would be finishing at 10, 3 hours of non-stop audio room. And I think that that's something that was a real shame. And I think that LinkedIn missed a trick when they lost those audio rooms, because people really did open up so much more and were so much more willing to share when there wasn't the risk of putting their face to the voice.
I
Don't
think
you agree?
that's something maybe we need to touch on in one of our shows, because many women live in fear of talking about symptoms, admitting they are in menopause at all, talking to their partners. So that's something I want to explore as well. So I want to, well, we're over time, so I need to close up the show. But I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that Stacey said. So I like the idea of decompressing, especially after a long day. I know many people scroll on social media, scroll through TikTok, which is fine, but it kind of depends on what your feed is and what's coming to you. So the more you look at negative things, that is what TikTok and Instagram or whatever is going to think you're interested in. So maybe, so I had to really push hard to change my algorithm to remove things, anything about news and stuff like that. So my feed is more cooking or comedy. So I love comedians, especially British comedians. So my feed is full of, so I'm always laughing. But in that decompression, that scrolling, remember to set a timer, because it's quite easy to think, okay, I'm just going to scroll for 15 minutes and 2 hours pass. So I literally have a timer on my phone that I'm going to scroll on TikTok. I'm giving myself permission to do that, and I'm not going to be ashamed. I want to scroll. I'm choosing to scroll on TikTok, but I have a set time. And after when that goes on, I'm going to go on to whatever else I have. Um, I know a lot of people now have things like adult coloring books, going back to that idea of creativity. Adult coloring books are a big thing now. Also, things like sip on paint. I'm seeing now they have a sip on um, create pottery. They have so many different sip on this, that. It doesn't involve alcohol sometimes in a lot of non alcoholic drinks. But the idea is to tap into that creativity. So find what works for you. Right now, I am going back and learning Spanish because I've forgotten everything. So I'm using Duolingo on my phone. That's my break time, and find what works for you. Tap into that. And if after a week you're saying, okay, no, this is not giving me what I want, it's okay, change it. So use the ideas that Stacey gave, that we gave on this show. And if you have other ideas, please let us know in the chat. Just wanted to touch on other things, because yes, we're talking about joy, but just to remind everyone, so this is for men and women, that our lifestyle also determines how our bodies experience joy. So not to forget the basics. Move your body. So the more physical activity you do every day, it doesn't have to be very long. 5 minutes every day still counts. Uh, your mindset. Stacey talked about journaling, about meditation, walking in nature. Find what works for you and decompress, get rid of that stress. And also remember your diet, right? I'm a dietitian. I will always go back to that foundation. The more good foods you choose, whole foods, plant-based foods, you actually change your gut bacteria, and the way you experience anxiety, the way you experience depression literally changes, right? The science is showing us, studies show that people who, and it's not that we don't have depression, we don't have situations that come up, But people who bounce back faster, come out of anxiety, come out of depression faster, their gut bacteria is literally different to someone who doesn't. And that bacteria comes from eating plant-based foods. Your peas, beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains, fruits, vegetables. I'm not saying not to eat meat and drink milk. I'm not saying those things. But let your meals be focused on those foods first, those plant-based foods first, because you literally change your bacteria, and that bacteria literally affects your mood. So the more bad bacteria you have, you will find those mood swings coming on more and more. Right? The science is very clear on that. So don't forget that although we're talking about finding different ways to find joy, not depending so much on medication as your first choice, but really remembering that foundation, those lifestyle choices affect everything else. Right? Any last minute comments before we close off?
I want to welcome Ashley. How are you doing, Ashley? Great to see you. Glad
Hi,
you're
Bethany
here.
Faith. Hi, Ashley.
Nice to meet you all. I'm going to show a video before we go, Lisa. But to build on what you were saying, I think that
How
there are
long is
two,
the video, Annie? How long is this
about
video?
3 minutes. It's
All
about my
right.
show on Thursday, so I have to show it because I'm a marketer, right? Anyway, there's two things I think we need to add to what everyone said so far. Maybe it's a question to Stacey as well. And they said, number one, I think we should actively, intentionally try to have a laugh every day. And actually laugh. Ha, 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 laugh. That's
Yes.
number one, right? Number two, I think, we need to be more enforcing of our boundaries. Be clearer, and be more vocal about. When Stacey will talk about advocating for yourself, I think we need to know when to say no. And so because I see a lot of people complaining that life puts on them, people put on them, and I think the simple answer is there comes a time when you have to just say no. I refuse. I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. I think your boundaries and laughing are two important things in terms of finding that joy every day. I make sure I laugh at least once a day.
Yeah. And people can't put anything on you unless you choose to take it. Right? It's all a choice. And
Exactly.
yes, it may be for family or close friends, but the choice is yours to accept things. And you may want to help someone, but if this is not the right time for you, you can say that. It's okay to say that and not to feel guilty about that, because going back to something Stacey mentioned, you can't pour from an empty cup. I know it's very cliche, but it's true. And maybe do that reframing and say, if I don't fill my cup, I can't serve others in the way that I want to. I can't give people 100%. And if you want to serve, if you want to support others, then I have to support myself first. Yes, Stacey, you're on your empty cup. Mine is not empty yet, unfortunately. Yeah, but so yes, what is important, right? So I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you got value out of it. If you have any other ideas, any other tips that you use to bring joy into your life, please leave it in the comments, whether you're watching now or watching on Team Replay. Join us again in the next 2 weeks where we'll have another topic about menopause. Thank you so much, Stacey, for everything you gave to us. Please leave your link in the chat on LinkedIn so that people can connect with you.
Okay.
Because I think you have such great ideas, and if they're not connected with you, they need to be. Annie, do we need to watch the video? Can you put it in the comment section?
Lisa, don't be like that. Yes, we need to watch the video.
Yeah,
Lisa.
or over time. Okay.
Yeah, well,
I'll time you. 3 minutes.
My video. That way I can then I can do my thing. Then we can go. How's that?
Okay, quickly.
Okay, quickly. Honestly.
Lisa's advocating. She's advocating for herself.
So am I.
Yes, but my computer is going to crash. I just see my video looking
all right.
I'm
Stop
disappearing.
Stop talking. Let me play my video. Anyway, no, go and buy your ticket. That's what I'll say to this masterclass. Listen to why. All right, here.
So AI is here. how are you using it? See, many people don't understand that the old days, how people used to search online, has gone. Yes, of course, SEO still works, but today the world has moved with AI. Now we talk about answer engine optimization. What does that mean to you? So here's a simple fact. So when people search for things online, now AI tools, whether it's Gemini, that's Google's AI tool, whether it's Claude, whether it's Perplexity, whether it's ChatGPT, what those AI tools do is give people recommendations. They give you an answer to your question. What does that mean for you? It means that you must become the person that answers questions that your customers are asking. That's how you're going to get people to know you exist and know that you can help them. So AI doesn't give 25 links like Google used to. Now AI gives 2 or 3 links at most, 2 or 3 citations. So you can be one of those citations, which is why we want to show you how to do that. So on a simple level, create a website and have your website content rank high for AI systems. Alas, that takes time, and you probably haven't got a website. What do you do? See, you need to learn how the AI systems crawl our information. Where do AI tools get information from about you? And how do they make sense of it to say what you do, what you don't do? How do they show your answers to people's questions? This is what we're going to teach you in the masterclass, where you will become the definitive AI answer. The masterclass is on the 4th of June, and it's on Zoom. The information page is on LinkedIn. So Christina Segato and I are going to teach you step by step how to create content to answer people's questions that AI tools actually crawl, categorize, and show to people who are searching for people like you. Don't miss it. See, what you do today with this answer engine optimization is going to build your online presence for the next 20 years. Don't sit there wondering, what do I do? Don't sit there thinking, oh, I can't be the answer to people's questions. You have to be. We all have to be. Do you remember when the internet started? They said SEO is important, and you said, oh, well, that's too complicated. Now those people who invested in SEO in those days are in the top rankings of websites. Today, you can boot for the next 20 years. That way, you can be the answer to your client's questions. Go and book your ticket now to join us on Thursday, the 4th of June at 7 p.m. British Standard Time or 2 p.m. Eastern Time. See you there.
See, it wasn't that bad, was it?
Thanks to that of you. Okay. Right.
Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Stacey, for sharing your genius. Do come back, please. Do come back. And if you're on PS5 or PlayStation Network, let's connect. And let's compete.
I'm not on PlayStation. I'm like Atari.
On what?
I'm on Atari 2600.
My goodness. Do they still make those things? Goodness me.
Wow.
Anyway, let's leave that. Let's leave that
I
alone.
haven't heard that since the 80s. Oh,
anyway,
my
Lisa,
goodness.
thank you as always. Paulette, of course. Thank you for being superstars. So back here again 2 weeks time, as you say, Lisa. So do connect and have
Yes,
this
connect with
conversation.
us, everyone. Take care, everybody.
Take care,
Have a
everyone.
good night.
Every single photo is a new beat to your drama. She's success with Global.Media.com and celebrate it with or without champagne or rum. She's success with Global.Media.